Hello everyone and welcome back to my Doctor Who reviews. I do daily reviews over on my Tumblr, and then once I finish a series I will come to YouTube, which is what you're seeing right now, and do a nice little summary, put it all on a tier list so you can see my views visually, and get to hear my opinions. And here we are, Series 3. So, the Doctor and Martha. I think they are cool. I like this series. I really enjoy the fact that, well, Rose is gone, which is, a bit of an L for the Doctor, and now he's having a bit of a rebound. And I love how the series sort of explores the unhealthy relationship that the Doctor has right now. I love the idea of the Doctor having an unhealthy relationship with a companion, and that being addressed, and that being a thing. And I think a lot of series kind of stray away from that, and sort of make it seem like everything's fine, and that annoys me a little bit. And I do really like how the series addresses it. So, let's talk about it. Smith and Jones, first episode of the series. What do I think about this episode? Where does it... It goes in S. It goes in S. It's fucking awesome. I'll say it. It's an incredibly tight script. It manages to introduce the Dradoon, a vampire lady with a straw, the Doctor and Martha's relationship, and sort of introducing them as characters and how the dynamic's gonna be. Her family. Just so much is introduced in this episode, and yet it still managed to have a coherent plot, funny moments. Everything just sort of blends together really, really well. It's very action-packed, and it just feels like a very, very well-paced episode. I love watching it, as it might be my favourite opener of any Doctor Who series. Bar maybe the 11th hour, I think it actually is. So we'll have to wait until I watch that again, and then I'll know. But for now, my favourite opener, Smith and Jones. It does everything right. It sets up this series to be awesome. And then Shakespeare Code goes and looks at everything Smith and Jones set up and says, no, we're gonna have a really lame villain. We're gonna do the formulaic thing where we set a Doctor Who historical between the 1800s and 1900s, focus it around a historical figure, and then glorify the entire era. They do it again, the Shakespeare Code, and it's worse this time. The biggest highlight being Martha, as she's entering, Victorian London as a black woman, asks the Doctor, hey, I'm black, shouldn't I be scared? And the Doctor just tells her to act like she owns the place, and everything will be fine. And everything is fine somehow, and it's nuts because I'm 99% sure it would not have flown in the 1800s. So, yeah, that's weird. And a lot of the sort of mistreatment that the Doctor has regarding Martha in this episode, not just the race thing, but sort of the way he's moping about Rose and the like, it isn't addressed in this episode, and I don't like that. I think if you're gonna paint the Doctor as a sort of morally dubious character, which I think, by all means, please do that. It's when the Doctor's at his most fun. Do it, tastefully and actually address it in the episode, rather than just sort of letting it be a thing. I think this episode is a little bit too unself-aware. Is that a word? Not aware? Unaware. That's the word I was looking for. It's too unaware for its own good. And so, Shakespeare Code lands in B, D. I can speak. I'm a YouTuber and I can't speak. But I can watch Gridlock and I can tell you it's A tier. It's a great episode. It does everything that the Shakespeare Code doesn't. The way that the Shakespeare Code doesn't address the issues of the Doctor and Martha's relationship, Gridlock does. Gridlock does it, really, really well. The Doctor gets Martha kidnapped and lies to her about the Time War, and then realises, as he's lost Martha, oh, I've made some mistakes, and he's able to talk about this with some dialogue with some characters, and then at the end of the episode, sits down with Martha after Martha calls him out on it, and he explains the Time War and what happened on Gallifrey, and he starts to sort of work on himself, and it's nice. It's really, really good character work. It shows the Doctor sort of rectifying with the fact that, oh, I'm a bit of a dick. I should maybe try not to be a bit of a dick. And I think that's pretty cool. I like that. And also, the side characters are fun. The world's interesting. I love the idea of this dark undercity to New York, and it's got all these goofy, fun characters in it, and they've got their own little community. It's lovely. It's a really nicely done episode, and it's why it's an A tier. I like it. It's fun. Now, Daleks in Manhattan / Evolution of the Daleks. Where do they go on my tier list? They go B tier, I think. It's okay. It's an okay episode. I think my highlight is the setting. 1930s New York. Finally, a historical outside the UK. They did it. And yeah, it's a really, really good setting. They show both the sort of glitz and glamour of New York, of your showgirls, and if any alien was gonna invade the Earth, it's gonna be here. But then there's also like the sort of dark underbelly. They show Hooverville, they show poverty and homelessness, and they shine a light on it. And I think that's really important to do when you're doing historicals, is to make sure you show that sort of nuance, that understanding of the era and what's happening in it. The issue is that the Daleks, in my opinion, this is where that sort of stakes fall off a bit. This is where you start becoming a little bit less scared of them. Dalek was fantastic for setting the stage for one Dalek will take over the world. Brad Wolf Party the Ways ups the stakes, and there's more Daleks, and there's an Emperor, and they're kicking ass. And then you get to what? Doomsday, and there's this little group of Daleks who are fighting Cybermen, and it's fucking awesome. And then you get to Daleks in Manhattan, Evolution of Daleks, and they are just hiding away in a lab, trying to make a human Dalek, and it feels a bit goofy. It feels a lot less threatening, and it makes the Daleks... I don't want to say this is the episode that makes them a joke, but it starts that kind of snowball where you become less sort of bothered by the Daleks. And yeah, it's what bothers me about this episode, which is unfortunate, because I think it tells an interesting story. I think the idea of the Daleks trying to adapt and change is interesting, but I don't think this is the place for it, and that's why it's in B, even if a lot of the writing in this is very good. The Lazarus Experiment has a lot of potential. It has a lot of potential. I love the scenes near the start of the episode, and there's a sort of a monologue near the end where the Doctor talks about aging and being immortal and how it's not that much of a gift, and how maybe dying is a good thing, but you have all this good stuff. You establish Martha's family as well, and you get to gain more of their character. And then it becomes a runaround with a giant scorpion monster, and it just feels like that was not the point of the episode, and yet they're running with it. I think this would have been so much cooler if the monster was just a guy who reverses aging. And there was a whole more quandary about it, and maybe there was something wrong with it, and some sort of mutation, but not like giant scorpion monster levels of mutation, you know? So yeah, I'm putting it in C. It's just not that interesting of an episode for me, and it loses all of the potential it had when it became a runaround, and it wasn't even a good runaround, I'll say it. I just didn't really enjoy it. But unfortunate, but it happens. But 42 was the first episode wrote, that's the word, wrote by Chris Chibnall. Written? Words are hard. And you know what? This episode is okay. This episode, I think it gets a bad rap because Chibnall's name is attached to it. And I do not blame people for disliking Chris Chibnall and his writing in Jodie's era. I'm not a huge fan of it myself, but we'll get to that later. In this episode, he does a pretty good job, I think. All things considered, he makes some very strong characters. You understand their motivations from pretty much day one, get-go. I think that whilst the character... This is a bit of an issue with Chibnall writing, but he does it well in this episode, where characters are plot functions, but he also, in this episode, is able to treat them as characters as well, and I think that's very important. There's a lot of big moments. Martha calling her mum at home was huge. You know, was it Corbin was the guy who got killed, and his wife had a big sort of dramatic performance that I liked. And it was just well paced. I like Lazarus Experiment much. I think it was just a sort of a dumb run around. I think 42 was a much better run around, and it had a decent mystery. You know, why was the ship being attacked? There was a lot of interesting stuff here, even though I've kind of butchered the explanation. I think it's okay. I think it's an okay episode, and I think people give it a really bad rap. I think 42 was decent. Leave it be. It's fine. And now we get to what might be the best bit of Doctor Who kind of not ever. There's been better runs, but these like next 5 or 6 episodes are awesome. And it starts off with Human Nature Family of Blood, and this story, probably my favorite I've watched so far out of all the episodes. I love, Martha's mistreatment in this episode is done to the max. She's put as a slave in 1912. Not a great time to be, a slave. Really not cool. John Smith is just a fantastic character. His existential crisis near the end is really, really awesome. This idea that this human guy has to die so we can get our doctor back. And there's an audience we're rooting for the doctor to be back, but there's this guy who's going to die if that happens. And it's like, whoa, that's kind of nuts. And the matron, her character is also awesome. The way she challenges the doctor and makes him seem so inhuman, so alien. Like almost like a deity, which is what this episode kind of does, is it shows the doctor as a sort of dark entity who delivers justice. And he was being kind by letting the family of Blood, by running away from them. It's wow, it's powerful shit. Powerful shit. It's just unfortunate that the way Martha's treated isn't really addressed, which I suppose is part of the whole arc, right? Is that Martha's being mistreated and the doctor doesn't care. But the way that he just hugs her, says thanks for looking after me after making her live through 1912 as a black woman, kind of nuts. But at least it addresses it a little bit more than like Shakespeare Code, And I think, Shakespeare Code has nothing really redeeming going for it. I think Human Nature Family Blood has just a fantastic two-parter and creates some fantastic mysteries. The Family Blood are also a fantastic villain. They're so scary, and it's just like humans doing some fantastic acting and just clocking their head, and it's it's great stuff. But then, speaking of great stuff and horror and, Doctor Who, we get on to Blink, which is the most critically acclaimed episode of the show, I believe. At least the most popular, you've got to say. And now we have to figure out where to put it. Where do we put Blink? And I think we put Blink at A tier, not an S. I know. Don't shoot me. It's a very good episode. The Angels are the most iconic villain of New Who. And just by introducing those, it gets bumped up. I think the second half of the episode, when it picks up on its pace, is also fantastic. The horror as it picks up, seeing the Weeping Angels move, it's scary as shit. The ending implying that the angels are all around us, that's also really cool. And scared the shit out of me as a kid. But I'm just not a huge fan of the first half of this episode. I understand its necessity to sort of establish these characters that we have no real connection to. But I don't get as much charm from these characters, and I think they're very cookie cutter. I think Sally Sparrow isn't really particularly interesting about her. Larry Nightingale, same thing, he's just a dude. I think that's part of the point, that he's just regular people being thrust into a Doctor Who story, right? But for me, it's very hard to sort of, that's not what I'm watching Doctor Who for. I'm not watching Doctor Who for regular people for the aliens. I'm watching Doctor Who for the Doctor being thrown at aliens. Really fucking cool storytelling. And yeah, Blink has some really cool storytelling, but I don't know, I just don't like the first half. I just feel like it's very underwhelming on a rewatch until the angels really start attacking and you get the sort of conversation with the Doctor and Sally over the Easter eggs. It's just, there is a lot in this episode. I'm very conflicted about it, as you can probably tell. But I'm leaving it an A. I think it's A tier. I'm leaving it at that. And then we get to the 3-parter. The big 3-parter at the end of this series. And we start off with Utopia, and I think Utopia is a really cool episode. It's set in such a unique setting of the end of the universe, and the idea that there's just people still surviving and sort of scavenging, trying to make this rinky-dink rocket to go to Utopia. It's a very hopeful story, at least at the start. And yeah, it's very nice. I also like the TARDIS team of Captain Jack, Martha, the Doctor. I like that trio. They're kind of cool. And the thing that I love about this episode, which I also attribute a little bit of it to Sound of Drums, is the way it picks up on so many things from different episodes to create the reveal at the end. You have Gridlock with You Are Not Alone from The Face of Bo. You have the Fob Watch from Human Nature, Family of Blood. There's a lot of exciting stuff that you sort of just accept and move on from, as you think they're individualized in their episode. And then all of a sudden it all just culminates at the end of Utopia with Derek Jacobi turning out to be the Master, taking over the TARDIS and regenerating into Harold Saxon. It's nuts. And it's such an earned payoff. It's not often I say this. I think a lot of Doctor Who arcs are just, here's a word, remember it. But it does a really, really good job of connecting the dots. And the Sound of the Drums, I would say, yeah, pretty much continues on from where Utopia left off and continues to increase the stakes and has a very, very fun time of it. John Sims Master is a complete nutcase. And putting that complete nutcase in charge of the UK is a really, really cool premise. And it's done super well. The Doctor, Martha, and Captain Jack on the run. It's a really fun, fast-paced episode. It's a lot of cool moments. There is an issue with it though, and that's why it's A and not S, is because the ending, whilst huge at the time and the cliffhanger's mad, it sets up the finale to try and resolve an Earth where the Toclafane have invaded, killed 10% of the population, the Master's in complete control, and all hope is down to Martha Jones being teleported down to Earth. That's it. That's how the episode ends. And how do you make a finale? How are you going to resolve that, like, in a satisfying way? It's nuts. And that's why Last of the Time Lords, unfortunately, lands in C tier. Because it does not do a good job at resolving. The way that the episode is resolved, for those who don't know, is all the people on planet Earth, Martha goes around and tells them about the Doctor. And this one specific day when this countdown happens, they all pray and think of the Doctor's name, and the Doctor floats up like an angel, zaps the Master, and he de-ages himself. And then, this is another nuts part, 'cause that's one nuts part, and it makes absolutely no sense. But I am not done. Then, the Master teleports the Doctor down to Earth and says, hey, I've got black hole bombs in my ship, I'll blow them up. And then the Doctor says, no you won't, you'll kill yourself. And the Master just says, yeah, okay. But then 5 minutes later, the Master gets shot. And he refuses to regenerate, and he kills himself. What? You just established that this character wouldn't kill themselves 5 minutes earlier, and then you have them kill themselves. That makes no sense. Oh, my brain. But there's a reason it says it isn't D tier, and that's because it gives Martha Jones a fantastic send-off. The fact that she's able to recognise that her relationship with the Doctor is unhealthy and has caused so much harm, and that she needs to stop pining and spending her years here when she could be spending them on Earth building herself like her life. And I think that's such a cool ending for the companion, for the series. I love the fact that it explored this kind of funky relationship where it was quite unhealthy for Martha and you could see she was being mistreated. And it addresses that at the end, and I like it for that. It's just, that's the thing that makes no sense. And I can't in good heart say it's a good episode of Doctor Who when it just has one ending that I really like, you know? And we can throw Voyage of the Damned in C tier. It's a special, so I'm not really going to talk too much about it, but it's just a Christmas run around with characters that I don't really care for. I mean, Banaka Flatter is the GOAT, but about that, it's okay. It's okay, but I don't really care for it. So it goes in C. And this is Series 3. I did it. We did it. Yeah. I tried to record this video, and I realized I scrolled down the tier list like 10 minutes through, so I had to re-record the whole thing. But you know what? Yeah, Series 3 is good. Series 3 is good. It's good Doctor Who. And I think it takes a really unique approach to how the Doctor interacts with companions. Yeah, it's just great. I have absolutely no qualms with this series. What am I going about? I have qualms with it. I mean, look at Dita. But it's great. It's a great bit of Who. It's some of the best TV out there. Go watch it. And, yeah, If you want to see what I think about half a series 4, it's already on my Tumblr in the description. After I finish series 4, I'll probably have to finish the specials too. I will be back on YouTube to give you all my opinions on them. But until then, thanks everyone for watching. It means a ton at every view. If you want to leave a like or comment or subscribe, it's kind of cool. I'm down. I just voice cracked. That's a beautiful note to end it on. A very high note, if you will. So yeah, I'm going to go. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.